The stars shifted slowly across the view screen as the shuttle descended through the thick red clouds of Varkal Prime. Lightning flickered below the surface, stabbing down into the molten plains. The planet was alive with violence, a death world in every sense. Most species avoided it, but for the Deathworld Alliance, it was home. Captain Elias Ward sat still in his seat. His uniform was plain, dark grey with a small Earth emblem on the shoulder. His face was calm, unreadable. He didn't shift. He didn't blink much. He had the look of a soldier who had seen too much and survived anyway. "Landing zone in sight," the pilot said. "Brace for turbulence." The shuttle shook as it broke through the last layer of atmosphere. Wind screamed against the hull. Lava pits and jagged cliffs stretched across the land. The Alliance had built their capital in the middle of it, towering black spires surrounded by walls of plasma shielding. Elias didn't react. His eyes stayed on the towers ahead. This was the first time a human had been invited here. Earth's acceptance into the Alliance had been unexpected. The Deathworld Alliance was made up of brutal species, warborn, hardened by toxic worlds and endless battles. They respected only strength. No one understood why they had extended an invitation to humanity, and many, including Elias, suspected a trap. The shuttle landed with a heavy thud. The doors hissed open and heat blasted in. Elias stood, adjusted his uniform, and stepped onto the landing platform. A group waited for him. 7 species, each more intimidating than the last. At the front stood General Thrax Vaughn, a mountain of scales and bone. His skin was black and armored like volcanic rock. 6 red eyes blinked one at a time as he looked Elias over. He didn't smile. "So this is the human," Vaughn said. His voice was deep, like a growl under the ground. "You don't look like much." Elias nodded. "I hear that a lot," Vaughn snorted. The others behind him chuckled, a sharp clicking sound from one, a gurgling hiss from another. They expected fear. They got calm silence. "Walk with me," Vaughn said. They entered the main hall of the Alliance Citadel. It was built from obsidian mined from Varkal's lava rivers. The ceiling rose 50 meters high, filled with banners made from the hides of extinct creatures. Bones lined the walls, trophies from wars fought across 1,000 systems. Elias walked beside Vaughn, hands behind his back. "You are the first of your kind to stand here," Vaughn said. "Some of us think that was a mistake." "I understand," Elias replied. "We fight to survive. We destroy to grow. What do humans offer, besides diplomacy and delay?" "Perspective," Elias said simply. "And peace if you want it." "Peace is weakness," Vaughn snapped. "Your kind has never fought a real war." Elias stopped walking. Vaughn turned to face him. "That's not true," Elias said, voice low. "We've fought wars that burned our skies. We've built weapons we swore never to use again. We stopped because we had to, because we remembered what it cost us. We came here not because we are weak, but because we learned what strength really is." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Vaughn smiled. It was not a kind smile. "We will see what kind of strength you have, human." He walked away. Elias stood alone in the hall, surrounded by the bones of the past. He had come to keep peace, but deep down, he knew something the others didn't. If they pushed too far, they would regret ever inviting humans to their world. The Citadel's council chamber was cold, despite the firestorms roaring outside the black stone walls. The ceiling was shaped like a cracked dome, designed to let in the pale red sky of Varkal Prime. Smoke swirled in the air, fed by vents that hissed steam from the planet's surface. Captain Elias Ward stood at the center of a circular platform. Around him sat the 7 members of the Deathworld Alliance Council. Each represented a different species, and each had seen more war than most entire civilizations. They watched him like predators studying quiet prey. General Thrax Vaughn leaned forward in his massive seat carved from the skull of a titan beast. "Let us begin," Vaughn said. His voice rumbled like thunder under stone. "State your purpose, human." Elias's voice was steady. "Earth wishes to join the Deathworld Alliance not for conquest but for cooperation. We offer our technology, trade and knowledge, and in return we ask for peace and mutual respect." A long silence followed. The council members shifted. One clicked its mandibles in annoyance. Another, tall and skeletal with glowing green veins, rasped, "You offer peace. We are forged in war. What does your kind know of Deathworlds?" Elias looked at each of them in turn. "We don't live on a Deathworld by your standards," he said. "But we've built our own kind of hell. We've had nuclear winters, plagues, civil wars that lasted for generations. We've turned parts of our own planet into wastelands, not because of the environment, but because of ourselves." The skeletal being tilted its head, as if intrigued. Vaughn, however, growled, "Words, only words. Where is your proof? Your scars, your victories?" Elias reached into his uniform and pulled out a small metal chip. He tossed it onto the floor. A projection flickered to life. Silent images of Earth's darkest wars, the atomic fires of the old world. The Battle of Europa, fought in space and on frozen moons. Cities burned. Soldiers screamed in silence. The council watched. No one laughed now. "We've fought," Elias said. "We've won, but we've lost more than we care to count. That's why we want peace, because we remember what we're capable of." "You fear war," Vaughn said. "I fear what we become when it starts," Elias answered. Another silence. One of the smaller council members, with translucent skin and no visible mouth, whispered through a translator, "You have discipline. That is strength. But will you act if provoked?" "If there's no other choice," Elias said. "We don't fight because we enjoy it. We fight when we must. And when we do, we don't hold back." Vaughn slammed a fist on the table, cracking the stone. "You speak in riddles and warnings. Is that how humans declare themselves?" "No," Elias said. "This is how humans avoid unnecessary bloodshed." Vaughn rose from his seat, towering over Elias. "We will test your resolve," he growled. "You will not hide behind words for long." Elias didn't flinch. He met Vaughn's eyes without fear. "I'm not hiding," he said. "I'm trying to save you from a mistake." The council session ended. Elias was escorted to his chambers, deep in the citadel. The room was bare and silent. The walls pulsed faintly with energy from the planet's core. He sat by the narrow window and looked out at the firestorm on the horizon. He had delivered Earth's message, but he could feel it. They weren't interested in peace, not truly. They didn't understand what humans really were, not yet. And if they kept pushing, they were going to find out. The days on Varco Prime passed slowly, marked by the constant hum of storms and the flicker of red lightning on the horizon. Captain Elias Ward remained in the Citadel, attending council meetings and private talks. He listened more than he spoke. He asked questions. He avoided threats. He carried himself with calm restraint, always watching, always calculating. But not everyone in the Deathworld Alliance respected silence. General Thrax Vaughn grew more restless with each passing day. He had expected a challenge, a reaction, something to prove that humans belonged in the arena of Deathworlds. But Elias gave him nothing. Only words, quiet eyes, and warnings. And so Vaughn decided to act. News came 3 days later. A human research outpost, Station Helios 9, located in neutral space near the edge of the Zarion Belt, had been destroyed. No warning, no survivors. The outpost had been small. 32 civilian scientists, 24 security staff. Their work was peaceful, studying wormhole stability. No weapons, no threat, but they were human. That was enough. Elias stood in the center of the Citadel's war room as the report played across the central display. Satellite footage showed a precision strike, plasma torpedoes hitting the station in sequence. Clean, cold, and brutal. Vaughn watched from the side, arms crossed. "I warned you we would test you," he said, voice low. Elias didn't look at him. He kept his eyes on the screen, where flames drifted slowly in the vacuum. "You murdered civilians," Elias said. "They were in neutral space," Vaughn replied. "Weakness cannot hide behind walls." Elias turned to face him. His voice was still quiet, still even. "This was an act of war." Vaughn smiled. "Then declare it." The other council members watched. Some were disturbed. Others seemed amused. A few shifted uncomfortably in their seats. No one interrupted. Elias stepped back from the screen and folded his hands behind his back. "No," he said. "I won't declare war." That surprised even Vaughn. "No," he growled. "No," Elias repeated. "Not yet." Vaughn's smile faded slightly. "Then you accept the loss." "I mourn it," Elias said. "And I remember it. But I don't rush to anger. Not like you." A council member with green feathers hissed softly. "Is this weakness or strategy?" Elias looked around the room. "Humanity doesn't start wars," he said. "But we end them, and we never forget who drew first blood." He turned and walked out of the chamber, leaving silence behind him. That night, Elias sent a transmission to Earth. It was brief, code only. He used an encryption known only to High Command. The message read, "Station Helios 9 lost. No retaliation ordered. Await further instruction. Stay ready." He knew what they would do. They would wait, just like him. Humanity had learned the value of patience the hard way, through wars that spiraled out of control, through cities lost in nuclear fire, through generations scarred by decisions made in anger. They had built peace not out of softness, but from scars too deep to forget. But he also knew this: when the line was crossed, Earth would respond, and that response would not be quiet. Elias returned to his chambers. He stood at the window, watching the burning clouds roll across the surface of Varkol Prime. He thought about the scientists, their lives, their work, the message their deaths would carry. Vaughn believed he had won something today, that he had shown dominance, but what he had really done was light a fuse, and Elias knew once that fuse burned down, no one would be able to stop the fire. The death of the Helios 9 outpost hung in the air like a shadow. Elias Ward's calm presence unsettled many in the citadel, but now it felt heavier. Quiet had become tension, the kind that made even hardened warriors shift uncomfortably in their armor. Captain Elias continued attending meetings. He spoke little, he showed no anger, but those who paid attention noticed small changes. He stopped eating in the communal hall. He no longer offered greetings. His eyes didn't wander the room anymore. They stayed locked forward. Vaughn noticed it too. To the general, this was progress. He believed Elias was nearing his limit, and he wanted to break him completely. Peace, he thought, was just a mask humans wore to hide their fear. So Vaughn escalated. The attack came without warning. Again, but this time, it wasn't just an outpost. It was people. 3 human diplomats, a woman from Brazil, a linguist from Kenya, and a young man from Mars Colony, had arrived on Varkol Prime days earlier for peaceful talks. They were unarmed, non-military, chosen for their calm minds and open hearts. They were taken from their guest quarters by Vaughn's soldiers, under cover of night. No formal arrest, no charges, and within hours, their images were transmitted across the Alliance communication grid. Bruised, bound, and bloodied. The feed cut in and out, but it was clear Vaughn was broadcasting the capture as a message, not just to Earth, to the entire galaxy. The words that accompanied the images were short. "Let this be a lesson to those who hide behind peace." The feed ended. Elias was called to the council hall within minutes. He arrived without guards, alone. The chamber was silent when he stepped in. No one knew what to expect: an outburst, a threat, a challenge. But Elias walked calmly to the center of the room and stood with his hands behind his back. Vaughn sat in his usual seat, towering and confident. He leaned forward. "Will you beg?" he asked. Elias looked at him. "No. You still won't fight." "No." Murmurs echoed through the council. Some were confused, some angry. One member, a species that resembled a walking crystal, muttered, "What are they waiting for?" Vaughn sneered. "So you truly are as weak as you seem." Elias didn't blink. He didn't raise his voice. But when he spoke next, the words seemed to stop time. "You've made a mistake." The entire room went still. Vaughn narrowed his eyes. "Is that a threat?" "No," Elias said. "It's a warning. The last one I'll give." The other council members stared at him, uneasy now. There was something in his voice, something heavy and certain. Not pride, not anger, but cold truth. One council member, a pale insectoid admiral, spoke up cautiously. "What will Earth do?" Elias turned to face him. "They'll wait. Just a little longer." "Why?" "So you can ask yourselves if it was worth it." Elias looked back at Vaughn. "You wanted to see what humans are like in war. You're about to." Then, without another word, he left the chamber. Back in his quarters, Elias sent a second message. It was even shorter than the first. Final line crossed. Begin stage 1. No other details were needed. Earth would understand. On Varkal Prime, the storm grew darker. Lava rivers boiled over. The wind screamed across the plains, a sign of the planet's rage, or something greater stirring in the void. For the first time, Vaughn felt something new in the air. It wasn't fear, it was regret, and he didn't yet understand how deep that feeling would go. The sky above Varkal Prime darkened faster than usual. Even through the swirling clouds of ash and lightning, something felt different. The wind didn't howl. It whispered, as if the planet itself had gone still, waiting. Captain Elias Ward sat alone in the command observatory atop the citadel. He had not requested another meeting. He had not responded to Vaughn's latest taunts. No more words, no more warnings. He simply waited. The first Alliance officers noticed it around the same time. Ships, dozens of them, then hundreds. Dark, sharp silhouettes dropping out of warp just beyond sensor range. No announcements, no formation warnings. They did not broadcast their codes. They said nothing at all. They simply appeared. The Deathworld Alliance scrambled their orbital scanners. What they saw next froze them in place. The Earth fleet. No banners, no symbols, just matte black hulls covered in armor and quiet fury. Ships that had not been seen outside human territory in over a century. Carriers, destroyers, stealth cruisers, and something else, something larger at the center. A command vessel shaped like a spear, longer than the citadel itself. It didn't move quickly. It didn't need to. It just drifted forward. Panic broke out in the upper levels of the citadel. Council members demanded explanations. Security teams were mobilized. Warnings were sent. Fighters launched toward the human fleet. None returned. The human ships didn't fire first. They waited. One by one, the Alliance fighters disappeared from sensors, not destroyed, disabled. The Earth fleet showed precision that defied belief. Engines were shut down without damaging hulls. Pilots found themselves floating, untouched but powerless. The message was clear. We don't want to kill you, but we can. In the war chamber, Vaughn pounded his fist on the table. Cowards. They won't even fight properly. Where is their declaration? They're not here to declare, said a council member grimly. They're here to decide. Then came the real blow. One of the Alliance's strongest military stations, orbiting the gas giant Branthos, went dark, not attacked, not destroyed, silenced. Its systems shut down in perfect sequence. Lights dimmed, weapons froze, engines stalled, all communication was lost. 10,000 soldiers inside, alive but helpless, an entire fortress reduced to silence, without a single shot fired. Elias stood once more before the council. They had summoned him in desperation, no longer out of arrogance, but fear. Vaughn tried to speak, but Elias raised a hand, and for the first time, interrupted him. You wanted to test us. Now you've seen the answer. You haven't won. Vaughn started. You lost. Elias said flatly. The moment you thought cruelty was power, the moment you thought we would do nothing, a council member with skin like metal asked, voice shaking, what will your fleet do now? That depends, Elias said, on whether you return the diplomats, and on whether you're willing to sign a peace agreement that guarantees no further attacks on human life. And if we refuse, another asked. Elias looked toward the viewing window, where the human fleet hovered like an eclipse. You won't. A few hours later, the diplomats were returned, alive though shaken. A peace treaty was signed. Elias did not gloat. He did not celebrate. He did not even thank them. He simply left the chamber without another word. The Earth fleet remained in orbit for 24 more hours. Then, just as silently as they came, they vanished into the stars. Vaughn sat alone in the empty hall long after the others had gone. His pride was gone. His anger meant nothing. For the first time in his long life, he understood what Elias had meant. Humans didn't fight like the Deathworlders. They didn't conquer. They ended, and they didn't need to roar when silence was enough to shatter empires. The fires of Varkal Prime still burned. Storms still rolled across its blackened skies. But inside the citadel, everything had changed. The Deathworld Alliance had gone quiet. No more jeering, no more boasts. The halls that once echoed with the voices of proud warriors now stood silent, humbled by what they had witnessed. The might of Earth had come and gone like a passing shadow, but its presence lingered. The silence left behind was heavier than any weapon. Captain Elias Ward stood on the landing platform, staring out into the sky. His shuttle waited behind him. The wind pulled at the edges of his uniform, but he didn't move. His face, as always, showed no anger, only deep, quiet thought. Footsteps approached behind him, heavy ones. General Thrax Vaughn came to a stop a few meters away. He no longer wore his ceremonial armor, just a plain dark coat. He looked smaller now, not physically, but something in him had broken, something he could no longer hide. "I was wrong," Vaughn said. Elias didn't turn around. "Yes," Vaughn exhaled through clenched jaws. "I thought peace was weakness, that fear was power. But your silence," he hesitated. It was worse than any war cry. Now Elias turned. He looked Vaughn in the eyes. "We don't want to be feared," he said. "But we will be, if we have to." Vaughn was quiet. Then, with effort, he spoke the words no one expected from him. "I'm sorry." Elias nodded once. "So am I, for the lives lost, for what could have been avoided." "I didn't understand your people," Vaughn admitted. "We fight because we are born into it. We earn respect through destruction. But humans, you hold it all back. You carry war inside and bury it deep." Elias stepped closer. "Because we know what it costs, not just to others, but to ourselves." He looked up at the sky where the Earth fleet had stood, silent and unchallenged. "We've built weapons meant to erase planets. We've fought wars that tore continents apart. We learned too late that winning isn't victory, if there's nothing left when it's over." Vaughn looked down. He had no answer to that. Elias continued, "You mistook our restraint for weakness, but it's harder to hold back than it is to strike. You forced our hand. You made us remember what we tried to forget." Vaughn clenched his fists. "Will the humans ever forgive us?" Elias looked at him for a long moment. "Forgiveness isn't given in one moment. It's earned over time, but you took the first step when you gave them back." Vaughn gave a slight nod. The wind picked up again. Elias turned and began walking toward his shuttle. Just before stepping inside, he looked over his shoulder. "Don't make us come back." Then he entered the shuttle, and the doors hissed shut. The journey back to Earth was long, but calm. Elias spent most of it staring out the observation window, watching the stars drift by. There was no ceremony when he returned, no parade, just quiet respect. Earth had never wanted war, but they had prepared for it, because they knew the universe would one day test their silence. That test had come, and now across the stars, the Deathworld Alliance would never look at humans the same way again. They had seen what humanity held inside, the memory of war, the fire of wrath, and the strength to bury both, not out of fear, but out of choice. That evening, Elias stood on the balcony of his home, high above the coastline of New Europe. The sea was calm, the sky was clear. He looked up at the stars, not with anger, not with pride, but with something quieter, something heavier. He whispered to no one, "We didn't want this. We never do." Then he turned away from the stars and walked back inside.